Okay, we'll now reconvene the meeting to regular session, and I would like to ask La Habra High School Principal Steve Garcia to lead us in the flag salute.
The new guy.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia, for going with the flow on that surprise. In closed session, the board took action to terminate the employment of certificated employee number 3539 by the following roll call vote: 4 ayes and 1 absent. Moving to the next thing on our agenda. Did I need to do something else on that?
No, I gave it to her.
Oh, okay, perfect, thank you. Is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval.
Thank you, Marilyn. Second? Thank you, Chester. Do board members have any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the July 26, 2022 board meeting?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chester.
Being too polite here.
I do.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joanne. Do board members have any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next is acknowledgement of correspondence to the board. Do board members have any correspondence they'd like to share? Okay.
Marilyn, did you have something or correspondence?
Well,
Are we
I
gonna
thought
wait?
I'd do it
Let's wait.
after,
Okay.
yeah, after.
Okay. So next, we get to do something really exciting, which is to introduce our new student board member. And I would like to introduce our 22-23 student board member, Jacqueline Wu, and share some information about her. In addition to being the 22-23 student board member and SAC chair, Jacqueline is ASB president at Sunny Hills High School. She is vice president of the Sunny Hills High School Stress Less Club, which I think I need to join. Jacqueline's course of study at Sunny Hills High School includes many AP classes. She's on the varsity volleyball team at Sunny Hills and is a member of the Baston Cherry Creek Greenbelt Committee. So I would now like to invite Jacqueline to come to the podium and be sworn in as the 22-23 student board member. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jacqueline Wu, do solemnly swear
I, Jacqueline Wu, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties about which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. You are now duly sworn in as the 22-23 student board member. And on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to present you with this Board of Trustees pin right here. And also your very own business cards with your name on them. You are official now. Jacqueline, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. Hi, I'm really grateful and honored to be representing all the students of the district this year, and I can't wait for this upcoming year and what it has in store for us. And here today are my parents who are standing up in front of me, my dad, Billy, my mom, Sunny, and my sister, Ashley. Thank you.
comments that they may have?
I'd like to go first.
Yes, absolutely.
Welcome aboard. We're excited to have you here, have your voice and your insight, and I encourage you to participate during the meetings. I know sometimes it might feel awkward, but you are a board member. You're not just someone sitting around, you know. You have a constituency, and your insights and your questions are really important to the decision-making of this board, of which you are part of, because as you know, you also get to cast a preferential vote. So, welcome aboard, Jacqueline.
Hey, Jacqueline, welcome to the board. No, it's exactly like what Joanne has said, and you are an important member of this board, and we value your input because you could give different perspectives from a student's view that we don't have. So thank you for joining us.
You know, I was telling Dr. McLaughlin this story the other day, and he said, oh, you should say that at the board meeting. I wanted to do it after you were installed, but, you know, I've had the fortune of meeting a number of student board members over the years, so you're joining a very exclusive club of students who have been students in our district. And every one of the students have been extraordinary, and they've brought their own personality and their own way of doing things to the position, and we're happy to have you join them. But a few days ago, I got an email from one of our former student board members, and he started out by saying, I'm not sure if you remember me, but, and he went on to say that he was with a group of friends, and they were talking about his experience being a student board member. So it came back to him, you know, what he had done. So I wrote, oh, and he told me he lives in Brooklyn, he's married, has children, is a financial officer with a company back there. He said he was happy that he worked remotely for a long time back there, and now he has to go to New York to work, which he wasn't too happy about. But I wrote back to him, and I said, of course I remember you, which I did. And I said, you were one of the most memorable student board members that we had, and probably one that was the most fun. So I haven't heard back after I replied to him, but I said, send pictures. I wish often or regularly, I think, wouldn't it be fun to get all of you together to share what your life became after you. And that student I mentioned was a Sonora student at that time when he was a board member. So the students come from every school. You know, it's, as you know, the process is open. You can apply, and your student colleagues choose you for the position. So I wish you the best of success, and don't lose touch even after you graduate and complete this job. So maybe you can have a reunion of those. I know Amanda Wong, I did hear about her. She, I think, is a pharmacist and had some big position with CVS up in Northern California. So it's kind of fun to, what little information I have. But anyway, I'll tell you more about that young man later that I won't tell the group. So we didn't exactly know what he was going to say all the time.
Well, Jacqueline, I just want to echo everyone's welcome to the board, and we're so excited to have you because you represent everything that we're here to do. And we're here to support you and all of the students in Fullerton Joint, and you are their voice on the board, and that's so important. So welcome, and we are so happy to have you. Thank you.
Can I say a word real quick?
Yes.
Just congratulations and welcome officially. For those of you who don't know, we had our leadership retreat, and Jackie came and was so eloquent. I mean, she put her on the spot and said, speak, and she spoke with power and with clarity and really with inspiration. So really excited to have you part of the team. As you've heard, your voice is so critical in helping us to formulate our decisions. You're going to be on a plaque on the wall that's growing and growing, so you get to enter in this history, and it goes really fast. I think you only got 10 of these meetings, maybe 11 or 12. So wherever your heart is and your head is, please feel free to share with us because you are a big part of how we make decisions. So congratulations, welcome to the board.
Okay, so I'm actually going to put Dr. McLaughlin back on the spot and call on him to introduce the principals to give their school reports.
Yeah, thank you, President Klatzker, members of the board, those in the audience and at home. We're back in suits and ties and dressed up and fancy because school year is about to start. That means our principals are back to give our school updates and a little bit of what's been going on this summer and what we can expect this year. So we'll start with, we're one off a little bit. So Mr. Weinrich from Sunny Hills High School.
Good evening, President Klatzker, members of the board, Dr. McLaughlin. It's
been quite a summer on for Lancer Nation. The campus has been very busy with campus improvements, campus cleaning, classroom cleaning, and other preparations taking place to get the school year started out in an amazing way for all of our students. Today was the first day of our Lancer Days orientation, and things went very smoothly for our seniors and sophomores as they picked up their schedules, textbooks, and ID cards, among many other things. We couldn't have done it without the dedication and leadership of our outstanding ASB advisor, David Fenstermaker, and our entire ASB. And Jackie, I want to make sure that you thank all of your ASB mates for all of their help today, because it was a lot of work that you guys put in. Today was also our Link Crew orientation for our incoming freshman class of 2026. We're excited to have our highest number, 87% of our freshmen actually showed up on campus together to get to know one another, the campus, and what it means to be a Lancer. Our amazing advisors, Lindsay Safe and Christian Bueno Ramirez, trained and led a huge group of Link Crew leaders since the end of last year to help welcome our newest Lancers into our family. This summer also did not see athletics taking a break either, as our Lancer golfer, Eric Lee, continued to add to his numerous accolades by making it to the semifinals of the U.S. Junior Amateur Championships. And then lastly, the Lancer family looks forward to having Jackie representing Sunny Hills in the student board. We're excited to have her here all year, and looking forward to the year together. So thank you. This concludes the Lancer board report.
All right, thank you. From Buena Park High School, Dr. Burke.
All right, thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Klatzker, members of the board. Yes, summer has flown by. I can't believe we're already starting school again. But we are super excited. Summer school was a huge success. We have a large number, not only remediating classes, but also a large number of our population advancing through math. And then we have a large group of freshmen that come every year to do Frosh Academy, so they get a jump start on their high school experience, and that really does help with transition to high school. We recently completed our orientation days, and the spirit was super high at BP. We sold more ASB cards, spirit packs, and gear to the upper 3 classes than to all 4 last year combined. So we had already eclipsed that, and speaking of data. And then we had our freshmen come through on Monday, and they just continued to buy the spirit packs and the ASB cards. So we're looking at increased spirit and them being on campus and coming to different events throughout the year. So we're really excited about that. Huge shout out to our Link Crew. They held their Frosh Connections Day yesterday. Lots of games, tours, and activities. And so bringing that new class of Coyotes in and introducing them to the BP culture, that was a big success. And then the summer was buzzing with athletics, and that only increased as the summer's gone on. And so we're so excited for the school year. We had multiple camps and clinics throughout, and a really high-profile camp hosted by 2 of our BP alum, Nick Needham and Jalen Hawkins, and that was a huge success, and a lot of people were on campus from all around the surrounding cities. And so we're excited for our new teachers to be on campus tomorrow, and then the rest of the staff to come back on Thursday, and it's going to be a great year. So thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. From Troy High School, Dr. Minster.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Klatzker, and members of the board. On Monday, we wrapped up student orientation for the upcoming year when the sophomores finished their day. Troy, APSA, Jeff Padgett, and our classified staff, counselors, ASB, NJRTC, teachers, PTSA, and TSO, Troy Sport Organization, made our orientation go very smoothly. And a special thank you to our Link Crew juniors and seniors and their advisor and teachers, Miss Carrie Snipes and Mr. Andre Gonzalez, for welcoming our freshman class last Friday. Regarding orientation, Mr. Padgett, who is in charge of the formation of the whole program, sent this email to our staff, which I thought was nicely worded and very nicely done, and I think appreciated. I just wanted to take a moment to express my sincere appreciation to all who helped make orientation the big success that it was. The lines were short, the flow was steady, and the average time from start to finish was roughly 20 minutes, depending on the day and time. This is quite impressive and a testament to the planning and hard work of everyone involved. Thanks again. We truly could not have done it without you. And I thought it was a tremendous email, and our staff did work very hard on this orientation this year. So ultimately, we are rested, ready, and excited to begin the new school year. Athletic, academic, cheer, band, dance camps have finished and or wrapping up. Physical improvements to the school have been made, and a couple are close to completion. Fall sports are getting ready for their seasons to begin. Leadership and new teachers are tomorrow, and PD days around at the end of the week. And then our students are back in full classes on Monday. And 2022-23 is going to be a wonderful school year. So thank you, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Minster. Our newest addition to the dais, new principal of Haber High School, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Klatzker, members of the board. We're excited to start the new school year. Summer has been busy with the planning and the hiring of staff. The team at La Habra would like to thank the support we received from Dr. Atkinson and Human Resource Department in filling our needs. We welcome our new teachers tomorrow. We've had 3 successful days of orientation in the last week to welcome our students and families. Link Crew, supported by advisors Ms. Alder and Mrs. Carlton, welcomed our freshman students with an afternoon of activities to build community, provided campus tours, and presented multiple programs and opportunities to recruit students to join their ranks. We are set and ready for professional development days this week, which we will reflect, reset, and reconnect to prepare for the upcoming year as we prepare for a WASP visit in the spring. ASB has been hard at work at preparing for the start of the school year. We have our back-to-school assembly for Friday, August 19th, our first dance the following Saturday, the 27th, and back-to-school night, August 31st. Fall sports are all underway as they complete the final preparations for their seasons. Our football game, August 26th versus Bishop Amat, has been selected as one of the games of the week to be streamed live by CIF. Finally, our aquatics programs and school community are thrilled with the new pool and are in the planning stages to hold the grand opening on Wednesday, August 24th at 4 p.m. Invitations are coming. Thank you, and this concludes my report.
Okay, from Sonora High School, Mr. Atkins.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. Good evening, Board President Klatzker, board members, and student board member Jackie. Welcome. Sonora, as our colleagues have, my colleagues have said, was a busy place over the summer. We welcomed an average of 150 youth within our community, ages 5 to middle school, to play baseball, basketball, and cheer with us at our sports camps, sponsored by our FCA, boys varsity basketball, and our varsity cheerleaders. It was a pleasure to see so many of our community back on our campus. While these camps were going on, our Raider Ranch had a spectacular showing at the Chino Fair and the OC Fair, winning too many ribbons to name at this time. We are so proud of each one of them and all of the accolades that they earned this summer. A special thank you goes to our ASB for welcoming our students to campus last week through our 3 days of student orientation, and we have a newly formed Link crew who welcomed our new teachers to our campus today. We had an average of 85% of our student body to walk through our campus through orientation. We had a great summer, and now we are geared up as we get back to going to school on Monday. We will meet with our leadership team and welcome our staff with professional development. Have a great school year, everyone. This concludes my school report.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. From Fullerton High School, Mrs. Rubio.
Good evening, Dr. McLaughlin, President Klatzker, members of the board. It was a great summer as well at Fullerton High School, and now we are gearing up for an amazing school year. We have been preparing for our opening these last few weeks. Our students have been attending sports camps and band camps, and we also had our orientation last week. Our fall sports is definitely ready to start. If you would like to stop by, we have our first scrimmage in 2 days. So we are ready to go. Today, however, we had the opportunity to meet with our leadership team and welcome each other to the 22-23 school year. This amazing group of teacher leaders are ready to help me move our school forward. We have made a commitment to reset, regroup, and reimagine the way that we lead. There is a renewed commitment to have courageous conversations, build capacity, and be the strong instructional leaders our staff and students need. We had a great morning, resetting our understanding of our roles, regrouping and reassessing our goals as a leadership team, and reimagining our vision and moving towards change. I'm looking forward to working with a great team of teacher leaders and the opening up of our new school year. Thank you, and that concludes my board report.
Thank you, Mrs. Rubio. From La Vista La Sierra Schools, Mrs. Leona.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin, President Klatzker, members of the board. I want to take a moment to thank La Vista La Sierra Summer School Principal Fred Carr for organizing a very successful summer session for our La Vista and La Sierra Opportunity, iSierra, and Adult Transition students. Our students worked very hard. Over 3/4 of them earned 10 or more credits this summer, getting them that much closer to meeting their goal of graduating on time. And speaking of graduation, 49 of the 51 seniors enrolled in the summer diploma program completed their units. We held a graduation ceremony for them in the La Vista La Sierra Quad on July 14th. The students wore their homeschool cap and gowns and were awarded diplomas from their homeschools as well. Thank you to the administrators from each of our sister sites for attending the ceremony and personalizing the celebration for their students. It was an amazing night. Finally, we kick off our back-to-school staff trainings with a leadership breakfast and new teacher orientation tomorrow, and of course, the entire staff returns for 2 days of professional development and preparation on Thursday. We are looking forward to having everyone back in the Lions Pride this week and working together to make 2022-2023 the best year ever. Thank you, and that concludes the La Vista La Sierra report.
I'd like to thank all the principals for their school reports. Next on our agenda is timely information. Do board members have any information that they'd like to share? Dr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, thank you, President Klatzker, board members. Very excited to kind of get started this year. Now that we tip into August, we're getting ready to go, and we started week before last, with our leadership retreat, which was held at the Nixon Library. Hosted our administrators, our supervisors, our managers, but also our association presidents, our student board members, and it was such a great day. Really fun. Really appreciated all the help from the Troy teams, I would say, the recording team of Omnia. And then we had some Troy Science Olympiads that were, I'd say, dressed as, but they weren't actual lightning bugs. They wore yellow shirts to help really kind of give some energy and spirit to the room, but really kicked off our year under the theme of Together We Are FJUHSD, and really kind of set a nice tone to open the year, followed by a full day of work with our managers, led by our cabinet team. So that was very impressive. So I appreciate that. To start the school year, we did send out a message, because I know COVID is always part of the conversation and is still part of our world. This year's a little different. There are no masking requirements. There are no vaccine requirements. There are no testing requirements for any of our students. We do still have testing requirements for staff that are either unvaccinated or haven't shared their vaccination status. And there's a couple hundred within our school districts, and we are providing testing still every day of the week at the Sunny Hills Ag Site. So we ask people to practice caution if you're not feeling well, to consider staying home, as always. Masking is recommended by the state of California, and so we recommend it, but it's really optional, and we respect everybody's choice to do so. So really looking forward to start this year in the more normaler, if that's a word, way than we have in the last few years. A lot of energy and excitement out there. And I just want to comment today, and Dr. Kaufman and her team really put together our new certificated staff welcome today. It was their first day. They get a couple days extra with us. They led a bus tour around all of our facilities to show how together we are. I got to meet them today for about a half an hour and talk with them and share the lightning bug story. And really great energy. It's probably 54 in the room. One of our largest groups probably in recent histories. And even as I came back to the office, we were still hiring more. And the way we know is because we've started a new onboarding process of welcoming new employees where they go through HR, they get walked over to the superintendent's office. We make sure we give them a little goodie bag of Fullerton Joint stuff. We take their picture and post them on social media. So I got to meet about half of them prior to this day. But a lot of great energy. About a quarter to a third are brand new to the profession, which we love to see. About the other third of the room were under 5 years and coming from other districts. And the other third were more than 5 years coming from other districts. So it's our objective to recruit and retain the best of the best. And the day today was so really invigorating to see new people into our organization. They're really excited, really happy to kick the year off. So can't wait to get started on Monday. Can't wait to see what the principals and their teams have planned for the professional development Thursday, Friday. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. Next up on our agenda are our Employee Association updates. So I'd like to start off by inviting our FSTO President, Angie Sinkak, to the podium to give an update.
Good evening, President Klatzker, trustees, and Dr. McLaughlin. We cannot believe that our summer weeks have come to an end, and soon we will be back in our classrooms meeting with our new students for the new year. FSTO leaders have been busy most of the summer preparing for the 2022-23 school year. And today we had the pleasure of meeting our new certificated staff members and hosting a Continental Breakfast for those in attendance. Thank you, Principal Rubio and your staff, for graciously opening your campus to our newest hires and making them feel welcome already. We have a well-rounded and diverse group, as Dr. McLaughlin said, and of certificated staff members joining us this year, and we're looking forward to hosting them all at tomorrow's new member luncheon. Our no-cut conference room is decorated and ready to welcome all of you tomorrow, which is why we look the way we do, because we have been up since 4 o'clock this morning. I would like to thank Dr. McLaughlin for inviting me to join in the leadership retreat on July 28th. The beautiful Richard Nixon Library served as a wonderful backdrop for our district and site leaders to come together and work together. It was refreshing to see the positive progress we are making together as FJUHSD, and thank you for fostering that relationship. Our FSTO Executive Board met for a very long planning session today, and we are looking forward to implementing some new strategies for member engagement in the upcoming school year. Our site reps will increase their visibility on our campuses this year, not only meeting with our new hires, but also speaking with current members to encourage stronger participation within our association. With the support of our FSTO officers, I also plan to increase my visibility on each and every campus this year, helping our newest members adjust to life in the classroom and in any other way that I can be of help to them, and how FSTO officers can serve their needs. This message recently came across my desk, and I wanted to share it tonight. It comes from our National Education Association President, Becky Pringle, and this echoes FSTO sentiment in this coming year. We are more committed than ever to lifting up our incredible students, our phenomenal educators, and preserving the public education that leads toward the country's future. We will be unwavering in our demands, undaunted by the challenges, unapologetic about our advocacy, and we will stand with our back straight and always unyielding. Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin and our Board of Trustees for steering us as a district in a much more positive direction. Thanks.
Thank you, President Senkak. CSEA President Joe Sliker is not able to be here tonight, but he did send a report, and I'm going to ask Linda Harder to read it for us.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. Hello, Dr. McLaughlin, President Klatzker, and members of the board. I apologize for being absent tonight, but sometimes life happens. I just have a couple things tonight. First, I wanted to thank our superintendent for inviting me to the leadership retreat at the Nixon Library the other day. It was a rewarding and fun experience, and I really enjoyed meeting people that I normally would not have a chance to interact with. I believe this is just another example of how much respect and value you have for our classified employees. I also wanted to thank Dr. Atkinson for shadowing me last Friday. He showed up at 6 a.m. at the maintenance department, ready to work, and I had a great experience showing him our district swimming pools. I believe there are a few incriminating pictures floating around Dr. Zahner's office. Don't know what that means.
They're all over social media.
Dr. Atkinson shared with me how interesting it was with the extent that technology is involved with our swimming pools, and I think he has a better understanding of my workday. I know Dr. Atkinson also spent a day with a bus driver this calendar year, and he plans on continuing this program in the future. I think his willingness and excitement to share in the classified employees' day-to-day activities is invaluable. Next, I wanted to say how awesome it was to see Dr. Jang at the new La Habra swimming pool last week. He has been really excited about this project from the beginning, and it was nice to show him around this beautiful facility. It's super cool to know our board of directors are so invested in our school district in every way. Lastly, I want to express to the board that the classified employees want you to know that the schools are clean, safe, and ready for another extraordinary school year for the students and staff of the Fullerton Joint Union High School District. Thank you for your time. Joe Sliker, President CSEA Chapter 82.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Joe. We have no report from our PTSA tonight. And at this time, we will move to call for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. We do have one request to speak on agenda items 7.1.1 and 7.3.4, which are items on the consent calendar. So before we consider these items, we'll ask for the speaker to speak then. So moving on to number 6, we move on to reports. The first item on reports is the revised board bylaw 9321.1, which is the 2023 schedule of regular meetings of the Board of Trustees. And this item is presented tonight for information and first reading. It will be presented at the September 13th board meeting for second reading and adoption. Do board members have any questions or comments? Okay. Next on the agenda is the 22-23 fiscal year 45-day budget update. This is an information item, so I'd like to call on Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Ruben Hernandez, to give us a presentation on the 45-day budget update.
Good evening, President Klasker, members of the board, Dr. McLaughlin. Tonight, we will be discussing the 45-day revision for our adopted budget. And these are expected outcomes for tonight's presentation. A better understanding of where we're at with the state adopted budget, a clear understanding of our budget cycle, purpose of the 45-day revision since the adopted budget, our current financial standing of the district, the ending fund balance, and how that impacts our reserve balance resolution as well. And then we'll talk about next steps for the budget cycle. So at the June 21st board meeting, the board took action and adopted both the LCAP and the adopted budget at the time. And then 6 days later, the state had signed officially a budget into act. So at the time of the June 21st board meeting, we were working with information that was the most current at the time, which was the governor's May revise. After the governor's May revise, the Legislative Assembly and Senate came together and submitted their budget to the governor. And then again, we adopted a budget here, and 6 days later, the state says, "Oh, here's some new information." So that's kind of where we're at as far as the budget cycle is concerned. As you can see, I threw a little a different color shaded in our budget cycle there because it is something that we don't normally have to do. But when you see a change to the budget that is impactful, we want to make sure we can come back and update the board on what that impact means. But as we are closing out the 21-22 school year, the team in business services is finalizing. We're a few steps away from closing the books on last year. Which makes it easier for us to navigate the current budget. But we're also still working with our financial audit, and so we're still have in the back of our mind 21-22, even though we're now getting well into the 22-23 school year. I'm not going to read the description of the 45-day revise, but basically Ed Code 42127 states that when there are revisions from the state adopting their budget, we have a 45-day window to come back and make any sort of adjustments to our budget. And that window closes August 11th. We're here on August 9th, so we have perfect timing for us to submit a revision to that budget. And so that budget was made available as we posted our agenda on August 5th. And we are here to report out what those numbers are for the 45-day revise. And so here's just a quick chart in regards to what that meant for our budget. And just so it's an easier read, I represent this in millions. So that first number that you see up there was a number that was presented at the June 21st board meeting of $155.3 million of our LCFF dollars. At the time, that was represented with a 6.56% COLA. And at the time, the base increase was a conversation that was being discussed both by the governor and both the Senate and Assembly, but it was unknown what that would be. So at the adopted budget, we represented a $0 amount because it was at the time too difficult for us to identify what that number could possibly be. We also knew that there was one-time dollars coming our way. Again, there was such a discrepancy between what the governor proposed and what we were hearing from both the Senate and Assembly that we didn't want to take a stab at that either. So as you can see at the adopted budget, the only real information we were able to present was the 6.56% COLA. So fast forward, they signed the state the state signs the budget into act. As you can see, the COLA still represents as a 6.56. You don't see any change in that dollar right there. But where we do see a change is now the base has increased. It went from what was initially presented to the board as 0% to an increase of 6.28%. And so that represents about a $9.1 million increase to our ongoing budget. The other item you'll see here that also is different was at the May revise, the governor suggested a one-time restricted dollar for us to spend, and specifically around learning loss to mitigate that. And what ended up resulting of that was a combination of both of what the Senate and Assembly was submitting to the governor and what the governor was interested in doing. So they basically split that up into two different grants. And one of those grants is titled the Learning Recovery Grant, and the other one is a discretionary grant. And it came with a bunch of different descriptions for us to spend it on arts, to spend it on operational costs, instructional materials, and it also came with the idea that we have to bring back a plan to the board for the board to consider. And so that's something that we'll be working with Ed Services and their team on presenting that to the board. The Learning Recovery Grant only requires that we submit expenditure reports, so there's no plan associated with submitting that particular grant. So we'll come back to the board specifically around the discretionary grant, around plans on how we'll be spending those dollars. Both these one-time dollars are restricted because they do have categories and how we have to spend them. And what we'll end up doing is creating a plan to spend those dollars down in the allotted time that is given to us. The Learning Recovery Grant is to be spent by the 27-28 school year, and the discretionary grant, I believe, was the 25-26 school year, but we'll make sure we clarify that specific time frame on that one. But again, as you can see there, the state's giving us a long runway to spend down these dollars. So we want to be purposeful with those dollars, and so we'll work through those nuances with Ed Services, and we'll come back to the board with the plan. And so here's what those changes look like. As you can see on the last slide here, it shows a total increase of $33.4 million at the very bottom. But the ongoing dollars is what's listed up top, and that's the base increase. That's an ongoing increase of 9.1, and then a one-time allotment of the two grants that were proposed. I apologize, that was an extra slide. Okay, so here's what the board saw back on June 21st. And really what I want to highlight here is the surplus/deficit row. When you take a look at that row on year one of the 22-23 MYP, you'll see that it has a structural deficit of 8.6 million, and then it gradually shrinks down to 5.9 million. Again, these are with COVID dollars. We're trying to spend those down, so it's a planned structural deficit. But as we get into the 24-25 school year, that's where all of our one-time dollars from the COVID monies goes away. And what you'll see here is that at this time we had a structural deficit of 5.9 million, but this also included the 3-year agreement with both FSTO and CSCA. So at the time we already accounted for those particular increases, along with other outside financial obligations, such as the CalSTRS, CalPERS increases, our medical potential rate increases. All those are factored into the expenditure row on this multi-year projection. One thing that I've added at the very bottom so that we can account for it is at the time you can see there was no restricted one-time dollars being reported at the time when we presented this to the board. And so fast forward to today, and this is where we're currently at right now. Again, all those financial obligations still included in this MYP here, but if we take a look at the surplus and deficit row, you can see now we're in the black. And you can see that in that third year, we show a surplus of 3.6 million. A very healthy report on our multi-year projection. And then the other item that I want to point out too here is that if we take a look at the row titled reserve cap towards the bottom, this is now the change to that resolution that we had asked the board to adopt back in June. And so you can see that that's the reason why here you see a difference, and that really has to do with the increase to the base, because the reserve cap does not take into consideration the one-time dollars since they're restricted. That's not part of the calculation. And so I wanted to point that out because that's part of our consent agenda item, updating the resolution. And after having a conversation with the county and verifying whether or not we needed to make this adjustment, since the 45-day revision is part of the adopted budget process, Ed Code states that we needed to make that adjustment. So what our Orange County Department of Ed suggested was that we go back to our resolution and specifically list board priorities. And so you'll see the board priorities listed at the bottom of the slide. We're not going to call out specific dollar amounts, although on the previous slide I show you what the total dollar amounts are right here. For the purpose of not having to consistently having to bring this back every time we make an adjustment to the budget, it's just easier for us to commit the overall dollars once we know what those are and stick to our board priorities listed in this particular categories right here. And so with that being said, Here's next steps. Next steps is to, I apologize, I can't see the writing over there. So today, asking the board to not take action, but just acknowledge the 45-day revision that's being submitted. And then we're going to continue to work on our financial audits. Next step is the first interim at October 31st window is we submit that to the board during our December board meeting. Then we go to the January proposed budget by the governor in preparation for the 23-24 school year. And then lastly, we will be starting our planning around staffing and enrollment in February. And this concludes my presentation. I can take any questions.
So, Mr. Hernandez, just for clarity's sake, so there is no action on this update on 45. It's just information only, but there is, on consent, an amendment to the resolution, just to make sure we're clear.
Yes, that is correct, because the resolution now will just reference board priorities as opposed to dollar amounts next to those priorities.
But it captures the total amount.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Thank you very much for this thorough information as well as continually keeping us updated on what's happening so that we can look at this information and know what we're looking at. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? Marilyn, you looked like you were about to.
Maybe when we get to the resolution.
Okay. I'm glad you're not going anywhere because you actually have the next agenda item. Mr. Hernandez, if you could go ahead and give your presentation regarding the Bond Oversight Committee, which is our next agenda item.
Absolutely. Yes, and so so just a quick recap on where we're at with Measure I. I'm not going to read through the ballot language, but this was the original ballot language that was put on our November 4th, 2014 ballot, requesting the community to vote for a potential $175 million bond for Fullerton Joint Union High School District. It reports out all of our comprehensive high schools in this language, and it also talks about how to go about spending those dollars. And so the purpose of our Bond Oversight Committee is to really have an accountability component. One, our board does that here from the perspective of contracts and other things of that nature, but then we also have the Bond Oversight Committee who then turns around and holds us accountable to the language within our ballot. And so Prop 39 is the reason for this. Prop 39 basically asked for two things. There's other things in there, but the two things I wanted to highlight was that it asked for an independent performance on financial audits and wants to make sure that we are appropriately spending those dollars. And then the next thing that it asked for is within 60 days of the bond being approved, it asked that we go out and ask our community to participate in what we call the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And again, this is the group that oversees the way in which we're spending those dollars according to the bond ballot language. And so just a quick rehash on the financials in regards to where we're at. Going back to Series A in 2015 was the first time we drew down against the total bond capacity of the 175 million. And the most recent one was Series E, and that was done back in May of 2020, and that was the last drawdown, and we've actually drawn down 100% of the total bond capacity. Again, this speaks volumes to the community that we live in, because sometimes the bond capacity is not always attainable. So that goes back to our the values of our property and the location in which our district resides in. So that's a huge benefit because not all districts can reach their total bond capacities. And now where we're at as far as total cash drawdown, the full 175 has been realized and it's on hand with the district to spend as appropriate. And currently, year to date, we spent a little over $148 million of those dollars. So on hand, we have a little over $26 million, and that allows us to get through the last few bond projects that we have in the pipeline. So just a quick update on some of our projects. This is most recently the Haber High School pool project. You can see for the top left is what the original pool looked like, and in the very center is the final or finished product of Haber pool. This is where the Bond Oversight Committee met last, and we did a tour for the group to particularly look at this project here. A couple of the projects most recently that have finished up is our Fullerton High School locker room. Top left, you'll see it's covered with tarp. At the bottom left, you'll see it completely finished. There's still some work to be done on the outside, but it's at this point the locker room has been finalized. Some additional projects at Fullerton High is a science classroom. You can see the photos on the left is previously, and the photo on the right is the completion of that science classroom. Fullerton High School auditorium has been a huge undertaking, and this is more around the idea of bringing it up to code from a seismic mitigation perspective. And so I know we're doing a lot of work internally and a lot of work for ADA perspective. And so there are still things to come with it, but the project has been mainly focused around securing the building from a seismic mitigation and ADA perspective at this point. And so again, going back to our bond oversight committee, they're basically intended to monitor and projects as they're being funded and making sure that we're spending them with the appropriate bond ballot language that was originally approved. Currently, these are our committee members. David is our current chairperson. We actually have Catherine Gock with us here tonight to do a report out of it. Drew, James, and Karen are fellow committee members as well too. There are open seats available still. We can take a couple more applications if we have community members who are interested, so please reach out to Business Services. But we got about 2 more years before we come to the conclusion of our Bond Oversight Committee. And so these were the dates in which our Bond Oversight Committee met last year. We met 5 different times, and at each meeting, we review all Measure I projects and budgets and take any questions, and we typically do tours at each of these meetings. And then at our April 4th, 22 meeting, we actually had CLA, who does our audits for our financials, come out and do a report out and took any questions that our Bond Oversight Committee members had. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Kathy Gock up to the podium for a quick readout.
President Klasker, members of the board, and Dr. McLaughlin, nice to see you. The Bond Oversight Committee, as Ruben explained, the BOC, is pleased to present the 2021-2022 annual report on the progress of the Fullerton Joint Union High School District facilities and construction projects funded by Measure I dollars. The purpose of the BOC is to ensure that all Measure I bond revenues are expended only for projects listed in the bond measure, as well as to ensure that the bond funds are only used for specific facilities, staff members hired to facilitate the bond projects. In addition, no bond monies are to be spent on any other school operating expenses. The BOC is also tasked with presenting to the Fullerton Joint Union High School Board of Trustees and general public an annual report concerning the expenditures of bond revenues and the BOC activities over the past year. We are pleased to report that all expenditures are within the requirements of the bond Measure I campaign. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our report. I could take any questions if there are any questions.
Do any board members have questions?
I think this is stepping aside of the bond projects a little bit, but regarding the auditorium, I was asked the question, and I think the answer to this is no. Was there any consideration giving to the replacement of the seating there?
Yes, at the time, the seating is part of a future possible modernization, but it will require some additional funding to do so, as we've already allocated bond funds for projects that are already in the pipeline.
Okay. Having been in those seats many times, I think we need help there. There's some that you sort of slide forward on. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, and thank you, Mrs. Gock, for coming and speaking on behalf of the committee tonight. Okay, so at this time, individuals who filled out a speaker request form will be invited to the podium when their name is read. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and 30 minutes per topic. And we have one speaker card tonight, and I'd like to go ahead and ask Mr. Van Hook to come on up.
Before we begin, I have a quick parliamentary question. Just is that 3 minutes per topic, so I do have multiple agenda items. Does the clock reset for each topic?
Yes.
Okay, so 3 for each.
And then one last question I did forget on the card. I did 3.1, 3.2. Is that an option as well to add that to my card?
I'm sorry, say it again. Which one was it?
Agenda item 3.2. I just would like to.
3.2? No.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all for being here. My name is Dr. Matt Van Hook. New to the area, retired from the military. I have a recent proud graduate of Sunny Hills High School with me tonight. This is his first meeting as a graduate of Sunny Hills, not a student. So. Thank you. Hey, yeah, sorry. Dr. Matt Van Hook, again, parent of 2 Sunny Hills High School. One just graduated there with honors. Wonderful time there. My other one's a sophomore. I must say my middles are theater kids, so they're like they love Sunny Hills, but they're ridiculously jealous of that auditorium that's getting redone. So I have a few just brief comments and questions tonight on different agenda items. The first one is on the vendors here, and I have a question with regards to the current vendor being used for the item 1. So I know there's a lot of them on here, but the one that and I'm bringing up my phone again because it has cut off. But my question on the vendor was specifically with regard to the counselors that are going to be being used. That's the Outreach Concern Incorporated and Learn by Doing Incorporated. I have maybe 2 questions on this. One is, I know that we're doing a lot of work with what happened in the last few years to make sure we're meeting the mental health needs of our students. I am unbelievably excited to see all the principals here tonight that are ready, not just to meet the normal challenges of a school year, although we've been able to put some of those COVID challenges behind. I am really encouraged by the fact to see that you're ready to know there will be different kinds of challenges for these students who have gone through a pretty difficult few years with learning loss and things like that. And so I'm excited to see that, but what I would like to know is, these organizations talk about working with counselors, parents, things like that, and I guess I have 2 main questions. One is this due to an insufficient amount of counselors that we already have in-house? In other words, paid employees of the district. We don't have enough counselors to meet all the needs, and that's why we're outsourcing some of these. That's question 1. Along with that would then be, what services are they going to provide that can't be provided by our own district counselors? That would be kind of part 2 of that question. And then question 3 for the board would be simply this: what is the transparency of counseling with the parents? So for example, a student who is working through, their websites for these organizations talk a lot about the hardness of, for example, coming from a divorced family, right? My question is this: the student's having a hard time in school, they go to one of these external contractors that we're paying that are not gonna be employees of the district, and they're like, hey, we need some help, I'm going through some hard mental health things. And they start talking about their divorced parents. Are those parents, both of them, the mother and the father, going to know that their child was seeing a counselor about their divorce? Or is there going to be silence on that? In other words, is there going to be a bit of non-transparency, what we would call confidentiality, between that student and those counselors, or the student and the school and the counselors, that the parents would not get a part of? So counseling may be going on, and the parents don't even know their children are seeking counseling. So kind of looking for those 3 main questions. And I'll just hang out here if there's any clarifying questions to my questions. So that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, President Klasker. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Kaufman. She's in charge of Ed Services and oversees the division that supports the counseling program and therefore this additional support.
Okay, absolutely. Good evening. So first off, as far as why we're seeking this additional support, is these are incidents or situations where students are asking more so beyond academic concerns, more specific on social emotional level. It may be something that's beyond the level of license for counselors in that area. So it's more of an additional deeper support. And these students, first when we, as counselors or administrators, realize it's beyond our area, then they will make a direct referral to the counseling center. And prior to them meeting with our students, so we do ask the parents to come in and they have specific permissions. So they have a conversation with the parent, get direct permission from the parent, and also have a signed document by the parent before any services are rendered.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. Van Hook? Do you have the other questions? It's under consent, so they're all on the item. So if you want to address your next question in turn, because the board is going to consider action on the full consent item.
Oh, so you want me to go on to 3.2, the other two items? Okay,
But,
I'm with you. You're
yeah.
saying item 7 as a whole is going to be there, so you're ready to, you don't want to, okay.
7 as a whole, 3.2, it would be a previous one in the future. So, but this is on specifically the consent item. So,
Did you mean 7.3.2?
Yeah, I didn't know if you want me to
oh,
address.
7.3.2,
Yeah, I'm done
not
with
3.2.
7.1. The next one is 7.3.2.
Okay, yes.
So come back for that, or?
No, go ahead and do that one. We'll do
Yeah,
it.
so actually, very similar question, which is the LVNs that we're bringing on campus. Again, it was unclear to me, looking at the services they provide, is that because of something that we do not have enough school nurses to provide? And so we're looking for basically extra help for things that a school nurse would normally do? Or does this have to do more with these LVNs are providing different kinds of services which our school nurses, don't normally provide? So that was kind of that's the pro-care therapy group that's coming in on number 3. Again, my mother-in-law is an LVN. I know exactly what LVNs do. I also know people in the Riverside School District. A good friend of mine was the district nurse there for a long, long time. So I kind of know a little bit about how that oversight works at the district level and then at the school level. So it was just surprising to me to see all these LVNs coming in and the spending on that. Just wanted to know, what was the reason for that? Does it represent something that is a stopgap measure? Like long-term, we'd like to hire permanent people into these positions that work for the district, but in the meanwhile, we're going to outside contract to these LVNs? Or does it represent something that's sort of a long-term plan, kind of like the Department of Defense does? We just simply can't get enough Department of Defense civilians, so we're going to kind of start to rely more on contractors for services that the district normally would have provided in-house. So that's the question, and again, I'll stay if there's any clarifying questions you have.
Yeah, same thing. I'll turn it over to Dr. Kaufman.
Yes, your first one. It's a short-term plan.
Short-term
Yes.
plan because of a lack of
Well, at this time, we need to
fully
see,
staffed
once we
nurses.
have our students on campus and truly identify the needs, we may not have as many needs as we believe we have, but we need to make sure we're ready and set and ready to go for Monday.
Okay, and these needs are physical needs, i.e. like in terms of COVID illnesses and things like that, or are they also related to emotional and other kinds of needs?
It's a variety, it depends.
Okay. But they would be providing the same kinds of services, for example, that normally that a school nurse would provide to the students.
Ms. Contrell, would you mind speaking to this item? She's our Director of Special Education and works with our nurses and LVNs.
Yeah.
So why don't you come up to the podium?
Generally, our LVNs are supporting the school site by assisting students with medication or who may have medical or procedures related to their health conditions.
In this contract is to support the opening of the school year, identify needs currently. We're also continuing to hire LVNs constantly throughout the year. So there is a demand, at least a service demand, or a lack of supply out there at the present time, so we want to be ready to go. And then you have one more, Mr. Van Hook, yeah.
And actually, this is the one I do want to take the most time on. If I can get my clock reset, I will take a little bit of extra time, because I'm going to read a few things here from the organization's own websites that we have. So I'll bring that up here. So I introduced myself before. So I'm Dr. Van Hook. I'm a parent, concerned parent in Fullerton that is excited to finally be settled in the military and not know that I'm moving in 2 years into another school district. So this is pretty exciting for me to know I have all the way down to a 4th grader at Sunny Hill, or at Golden Hill, that I'm going to get to see, like, maybe actually be at the same school for more than 2 or 3 years. So pretty exciting for me. I actually did spend a little longer on my last assignment. I was a professor at the Air Force Academy, and I spent approximately 10 years, 8 at the Academy, teaching civic education. I have a PhD in political philosophy and constitutional law, and I teach the Constitution to students. I have published extensively on race, diversity, the legacy of slavery. I have a book on Abraham Lincoln, one on Harper Lee and To Kill a Mockingbird, and her second book no one reads, but it's really important, called Go Set a Watchman. So this is a super important issue to me. My daughter is hearing impaired and has several special needs, so I am looking forward to her getting the services in special ed. But this item is not exactly what it appears to be when you look at their website. So it talks about executive function and equity in this group that is performing these services, the Research Institute for Learning and Development. The woman who runs this program, she's been doing this for about 10 years. She's the founder and the president of the program. She had a book in 2010 on this executive function piece of how she does a pedagogy for teachers in general. And I can see that the special needs teachers could benefit from that. But if you look at the website, it's not actually toned right now towards special needs students. It's for any students. Her idea is that her method would apply to all. Actually, specifically, she focuses deeply on socioeconomic status as the target of her model and her program. That's her gig. In 2010, she focused mainly broadly on this as a scholarly and pedagogical task. But if you look at their website now, it's much different. Things have changed quite a bit from her initial book. And I'm going to read a few of the samples of what that talks about. So it talks about executive function and equity. It leaves behind other traditional language of equality, of natural rights, of all human beings being entitled to respect and dignity. And instead, I'll give you a couple quick links. If you click on their Executive Function and Equity Fellowship, which is part of the program that this is going to be provided to our special ed teachers, it talks about something very specific here that says it is, quote, executive function represents a powerful tool for developing equitable and anti-racist educational systems. If you look at her white paper, it says, quote, this white paper explores the connections between EF, which would be executive function, development, and equitable student outcomes. For the purposes of clarity, we examine equity through the lens of socioeconomic status while recognizing the multifaceted and intersectional nature of equality in education. This is actually a highly politically charged language that didn't used to be this way, and I understand what the corporation is trying to do. It's trying to get with the times, but I know that there is some important things coming down the pipe on how we're going to implement our ethnic studies courses, and I kind of want to know, did this kind of sneak in where we didn't really know what this organization was all about, and we're making a clear direction in our ethnic studies course, or was it just kind of more of a, we actually didn't know that they were doing this, we thought they just taught special ed teachers? And that's it. Good time.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually asked Ms. Cantrell to come back up. She leads special education for the district. She's our director of special ed. She worked with the team to evaluate this in order to implement for this year. So if you wouldn't mind giving a little history.
Certainly. We had recognized that coming back off of COVID, some of the supports that we could be offering our students was teaching them study skills, looking at the executive functioning strategies that would be helpful for them to be able to grasp information, look at memorization, looking at how to prioritize their skills, looking at being able to help with calendaring, just the typical things that are embedded in what we would call a study skills class. So looking at students with our disabilities in mild moderate programming, these are students that generally have some level of impairment that interferes with their ability to grasp those skills with little to no support. So this is a way we could do direct instruction with the study skills.
And can you just articulate the process you went through in vetting this and working with your teams?
So this summer we had focus groups that were open to administrators as well as special education teachers and our psychologists, and we were really looking at a way in which we could enhance our learning lab or our study skills classroom by having some level of direct instruction that would enhance the study skills to prepare students to be more successful by the time they were juniors and seniors. So we vetted a few different companies just doing online webinars with the providers, and we looked at the curriculum itself, we looked at the objectives, we looked at the pacing, and we made a determination who had pre and post assessments that would give feedback to the teachers, what would be very easy to implement for teachers on an ongoing basis, and how to prioritize the needs and levels of our students, whether it's the first of the year or the end of the year.
Great. And it's a one-year contract, so I'm sure there's an evaluation process your team's going to take as we go through?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
As always, yes.
Okay.
That's a clarifying question to that then?
Well,
I don't think that was actually the answer I was looking for.
so it respects to ethnic studies, is that the question?
Right,
So-
I actually, the pedagogical part seemed quite clear, but I didn't get the answer to the question of, did we know that they're using a certain kind of lens and philosophy that is very distinctive and very politically charged right now when they chose this, or was it the fact that all of the companies reviewed had this language and there was no way to get around it?
So I'll go ahead and jump in. Thanks, Ms. Cantrell. Essentially, what I understand about the process was this is not a part of an ethnic studies team nor ethnic studies exploration as far as how you're articulating what you've shared. The direction that this team took wasn't connected to those concepts, or at least the application of those concepts as you described them. And so with those efforts, that team came forward with a recommendation to utilize for special ed this year.
So would it be fair to say that the board, when they vote tonight, is going to have that understanding that when they come in, because this is on their front page of their thing, if they come in saying, we're here to teach about anti-racism and equity, and by the way, we'll also teach you about some pedagogical tools, that would go against what the board's intent is here. Is that fair to say?
So I don't quite understand what you're asking as far as the question.
Right, they're going to come in for the training and say, the training here is about equity and socioeconomic status. racism and things like that, not the things that were just discussed. Would the board have a problem with that if they're like, this is not being implemented the way that we intended it to be?
So the intent of the agenda item tonight, and this will be kind of the response, and I know you and I are meeting tomorrow from 4 to 5, so I'm happy, just like last time when I said we can talk more, happy to talk more about the specifics of that process. This item is actually, the intention is to be applied as it's written, and the support, as you've heard, by our special ed director, and so the board's consideration tonight is for this type of program.
Okay.
If there's information or evidence that comes forward that takes us away from that direction, then we'll be evaluating it ourselves, as I wanted to make sure that our director shared that there's an evaluation system in place so that we are staying true to the objective of pushing this forward.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, appreciate it, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. Are there any items the board members would like pulled from the consent calendar? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Thank you, Marilyn. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Joanne. Do board members or the student board member have any questions or comments? Okay. She does. So I am very happy to say these words for the first time of many. Jacqueline, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you very much. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Are there any comments from the board?
Yeah. Happy new school year. Wish you the best. Looking forward to being on campuses and seeing all the fun stuff and that energy the first day. You know, I've talked about it many times. There's nothing like it. It's just full of possibility. So have a great year. Of course, we'll be seeing each other, but nonetheless, great launch. How about that?
No, it's nice to see the principals all back in here with suits and ties. I almost didn't recognize you guys when you guys came in with regular clothes. But I'm so happy that the school year is starting. And I know that Principal Atkins, Alan, now you're going to be seeing a lot of me over there. But it's definitely, this is a fantastic way to start the new school year with no mask, no proof of vaccinations. It feels like back to normal. And it's a good way to start the new year. And I'm looking forward to having a meeting on new teachers tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And enjoy the last week of vacation.
And I'd just like to jump on and welcome everyone back, and it is wonderful to see you guys. And when Target put out their school supplies in July, it freaked me out a little bit. I wasn't ready for it, but it's always nice to start the school year. It's a fresh start, full of possibilities, as Joanne said, and it's always an exciting time. And I just want to tell everybody welcome back. So on that note, Marilyn, did you have something? I apologize.
That's okay. I didn't speak up initially, but again, we're happy to see you all. You know, when you were giving your reports, when your children are in school, you know they're busy and you know what's going on. But when you hear the totality of what's going almost or part of what's going on at the campuses, it's really overwhelming the amount of activities that these students are exposed to and have the opportunity to participate in. So I don't know how you manage to keep everything, all the balls in the air, but we appreciate you and thank you very much. Good to see you.
Okay, on that note, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Are you Jacqueline or Jackie?